Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. First up, the big news of the weekend. D&D Celebration obviously just happened. We had 3 days straight of non-stop big D&D stuff going on. And the big news from the weekend is the Future of D&D panel that happened at the very end of the celebration yesterday, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. In it, they had all of the top dogs from Wizards of the Coast who work on D&D talk about what the future of D&D is going to be, what it's going to look like, and they had some very, very exciting things to say. First off, in 2022, we are getting 2 classic settings being revisited. That is either going to be setting books, like a Von Richten's kind of thing, or it's going to be adventures like a Witchlight kind of thing, which is going to be super cool. There's another classic setting coming in 2023. And then the big news in 2024, they are having the next evolution of D&D. Now, they very, very specifically did not say the next edition of D&D several times over, which does make sense because D&D is the most popular that it has ever been, so there's no real reason for them to push out a new edition right now while there are still so many new people getting into the hobby. Honestly, it would probably turn a lot of people off if they bought a bunch of stuff for it and then, next year it became obsolete and they had to buy a bunch of stuff again. They honestly probably would do it, but they are not. They said it's going to be backwards compatible with 5e, so it's probably going to be a 5.5 because that's essentially what happened with 3rd edition, and that's how we ended up with 3.5. Everything is going to supposedly be probably a tightening of the rules and is going to be reflective of the class survey that they had out last month and earlier this month, actually. So, they are pushing that out for the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons, which is going to be super, super cool. Also, in that time frame, they're going to be looking at redesigning monster stat blocks, especially the spellcasters, because the spellcaster stat blocks are clunky and impossible to use right now. So, that is so good. That's so good. I'm so excited about that because they're not wrong. Spellcaster stat blocks are awful to try and use as a dungeon master. So we are getting that, which is phenomenal. In terms of streams that are happening today, moving along from news, the only ones that I know of that I have on the calendar are the ones that are happening on the official D&D channel on Twitch. So that is twitch.tv/DND. At 3:30 Eastern Time, there is the Roll20 Candlekeep Mysteries, and at 7 Eastern Time, there is Into the Mist. So check those out if you're looking for a little bit of D&D at the end of your workday today. Before we get into the topic for today, I have a couple of quick things that I want to take care of for the channel here, for the show. First, we are at, as of recording this, 120 subscribers. That is so good. That's so awesome. Thank you guys so much for everything. I truly, really appreciate the support. I am going to be pushing this further as far as I can. And there are a lot of you that have been asking if I could push it as a podcast. So I set a goal on Patreon for that. But I am going to push it a little bit further. If we can hit, I'm going to call it 200 subscribers by the 1st of October, I will eat whatever the cost difference of it is and start pushing this out as a podcast to show you guys that I really, really do appreciate that. Now, that is an 80 subscriber jump in the next 4 days. By the time I post the Good Morning Adventures on Friday of this week, October 1st, if we hit 200, I will post the entire backlog as fast as I can of Good Morning Adventures episodes, as well as all of the ones going forward, to every major podcasting service that I can. So push this to your friends, push this to everybody, get them on board if that is something you want to see. I am excited about it, and I hope that you are too. Next thing, there has been a small push in feedback and stuff like that for me to actually just talk about like the tea that I'm drinking for like 30 seconds every day. And I have one very, very regular subscriber who likes to rate my mugs as we go. So I'm going to be adding a mini section in the middle of this called T&D, which was a name suggestion by a lot of you guys, where we talk about, or really just not even talk about it. I just tell you what kind of tea I'm drinking, and we go ahead and I show you guys the mug that I have, and we are going to, you guys can rate it in the comments. You can talk about whatever you're drinking. I want to hear about it, and honestly, comments drive the algorithm, so let me know. So today I have a nice gunpowder green tea. It is my go-to almost every morning. It gets me moving a little bit. It's really nice. Green tea you steep for somewhere between 3 and 7 minutes. It depends upon the kind of tea and the manufacturer, in water that is about 165 to 175 degrees Fahrenheit. That most people just boil their tea water, and that's not quite right, but you can still make perfectly fine tea that way. And this, we're starting back at the beginning. We're kind of gonna scrap all the ones that I've had so far, because I want to give everybody a shot at actually rating this. This is the mug for today. It says, "I'm just a woman with a master's degree that loves tacos." It is one of my favorite mugs, and I am a big fan of it. I got it at Goodwill. It's amazing. So, thank you guys so much for interacting, for pushing this video. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming along on the ride with me. Now, moving on. That sounded like a wrap-up. It's not a wrap-up. Moving on, we are jumping into today's topic. Like I mentioned last week, Mondays are going to be main class days. So today we are going right down the list, and we are talking about Barbarians. Now, Barbarians, honestly, might be one of the most straightforward classes in the game. That's not a bad thing. They are primal fighters of brute strength. I have written Primal Warrior in my notes because I wanted to differentiate them from fighters, which is another class if you don't know. So they are Primal Warriors of brute strength. They are centered around just like raw power, raw ferocity, and that is a really cool concept, honestly. So, running through the things that they get. Right away at level 1, Barbarians pick up Rage and Unarmored Defense. As a bonus action on their turn, Barbarians can enter a state called a Rage, where they get a bunch of different stuff. They get advantage on strength checks, and they take half damage to all bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage. They are essentially, they turn into this primal warrior, and they also get a bonus to damage rolls. Yeah, to damage rolls based on their rage damage modifier in the rage column of their table. At level 1, they can rage twice per long rest, and they deal an extra 2 damage for their rage. Now, Barbarians are one of 2 classes that get unarmored defense in the game. They get 10 plus their Constitution modifier plus their Dexterity modifier. It makes Barbarians sort of a little bit of a fractured class, just because they focus so much on strength for all of their attacking. Constitution, they have the biggest hit die of all of the different classes in the game, so they get more hit points. And then Dexterity is always going to be associated with your armor class, no matter what. But spreading yourself over 3 different ability scores isn't always the easiest thing to do. So a lot of people end up with a lower armor class, just because they are trying to boost their hit points and their strength as much as possible. And that's fine. Play it however you want to play it. If you can get all 3 of them up, great. If not, oh well. At 2nd level, you get Reckless Attack and Danger Sense. Danger Sense allows you to, gives you advantage on Dexterity saving throws against effects that you can see, assuming you aren't blinded, deafened, or incapacitated. And Reckless Attack allows you to when you make your first attack on a turn, you don't have to be raging for this one. You can decide to attack recklessly. It gives you advantage on all attacks on that turn, but everything else against you has advantage on attacks against you until the start of your next turn, which is a big deal, because it's important to note that you do not get Reckless Attack to carry over to your opportunity attacks that you might be taking against things, but everything has advantage against you. So it's kind of a trade-off. If it's fighting a big boss monster, usually worth it. If not, and it's a horde of little guys, it gets dangerous fast. But it offers you much better opportunity to get criticals because you can just give yourself advantage. At 3rd level, you pick up your Primal Path, which is the subclass stage for Barbarians, and we will run through those really quick later on. Also at 3rd level, you get 3 rages per long rest instead of 2. At 5th level, you pick up extra attack and fast movement. Extra attack is exactly what it says. When you take the attack action, you can attack twice instead of once. Fast movement, as long as you are not wearing any heavy armor, your speed increases by 10 feet, which is great. Just means you can move more, you can get up and stuff faster. 6th level, you get a Primal Path feature, but you get an additional rage. So you're at 4 now with a +2, 4 now per long rest with a +2 to damage. At 7th level, you pick up Feral Instinct, which gives you advantage on initiative, it gives you advantage on initiative rolls. And if you would be surprised in combat, you can rage immediately and then act normally on your turn. Or you can rage on your turn as the first thing you do and then act normally instead of being surprised for the entire turn that you have. Because of the way that surprise works, I'll probably cover that in another video at some point because it is a little more hinky than just, there's a full round of surprisedness. Level 9. This is where the Reckless attack starts to become a lot more appealing. At level 9, you pick up Brutal Critical. 1 die. It increases as you go on, if that wasn't obvious. Brutal Critical is one of my favorite features in any class, in any martial class specifically, because it is so good. You just get to deal extra damage. So on a critical hit, you do all of your normal damage, right? Everything like that. And then you take whatever weapon die you have been rolling, and you roll it again, and you add that number to the top of the damage. So if you're swinging around a great axe, because Barbarians, let's be honest, 90% of the time, great axe or great sword, this is the point where the 2d6 versus 1d12 becomes, it swings in favor of the great axe instead of the great sword. However, there's a whole thing about damage distribution and all that. Not the point. You get to roll another damage die on top of it. So if you score a critical hit with your, what am I saying? If you score a critical hit with your great axe, you get to roll your d12 twice. So you roll 2d12, add that up, add your strength mod, add your rage mod, and then you add another d12 on top of it. And that is how much damage you do, which is ludicrous because that scales super well. Because with things like a d12, that's up to 12 more damage. And at this point, you've probably got magic weapons, you got other stuff. It really feeds into it super well. Also, at 9th level here, you get your rage damage goes from 2 to 3. So now you have 4 rages per long rest and 3 damage bonus on top. At 11th level, you get Relentless Rage, which is another one of those really, really meaty core class features for Barbarians. When you drop to 0 hit points, you can make a Constitution saving throw, DC 10, to not drop to 0 hit points, but instead to drop to 1 hit point. You can do that as many times as possible because the DC for it goes up by 5 every time. So 10, you should be able to make pretty easily. So that's one downing strike that you should just sort of like be able to pass through. The second one goes to 15. A little more difficult, but Barbarians are one of the classes that should be able to take that, and so on and so forth. It resets when you finish a short or long rest. So if you guys can sit down for an hour between fights, your Relentless Rage comes back right to where it needs to be. Phenomenal. At 12th level, you get another rage. There's an ability score improvement here as well, but you get 5 rages at 3 damage each. At 13th level, your Brutal Critical increases to 2 additional damage dice. So if you got that great axe, you're now rolling an additional 2d12 on top of everything else. At 15th level, you pick up Persistent Rage. A Persistent Rage allows you to only lose your rage if you drop unconscious or you decide to end it. Normally, rage ends if you do not attack something or you are not attacked by, like, in a full round of combat. Persistent rage lets you just be angry and run around like a maniac without being touched by anything or touching anything. It's pretty cool. 16th level, there's an ability score improvement, but you go from 3 damage to 4 damage on your rage, which means that you now have 5 rages per long rest and a plus 4 damage. At 17th level, you get your 3rd brutal critical die, which means you are now rolling an additional 3 damage dice on top of whatever you have just done. At 18, you get Indomitable Might, which allows you to, not allows you to, it makes it so you can't roll below your strength score on a strength check. Or save? No, just strength check. Had to check that one. Which means that if you have a 20 in strength, it is impossible for you to roll below a 20 in strength, which is ludicrous. And remember, that includes athletics. So if you have rolled so badly, you're doing bare minimum 20, which is considered a hard check in terms of like DCs all around. So that's phenomenal. Also at this level, you get another rage. So you have 6 rages per long rest and a plus 4 to them. And at 20th level, you get Primal Champion, which adds plus 4 to your strength and your constitution score, and your maximum for those scores goes up by 4 each, which means you can now cap out at 24 strength and 24 constitution. That constitution will add, assuming you have leveled yourself outright and everything like that, you're going to get an additional 40 hit points from this, because 4 ability score points is an additional plus 2 modifier, which means that you are getting plus 2 hit points for every single level you have at that point. You're gaining 40 hit points from that. Your strength score goes to 24 potentially, which means that you can't roll below a 24 on your strength checks, which is insane. That is everything you get from the Barbarian. Obviously, we hit level 20. That's crazy. So we're going to run through really quick the overall feel for every one of these subclasses here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Barbarian subclasses that are officially published, and honestly, I like pretty much all of them. First up is the Ancestral Guardian, the Path of the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian. This is your protector sort of subclass. It draws attacks and it reduces damage to your allies, which is really, really cool because Barbarians are going to plant themselves on the front line anyway, so it helps to sort of mitigate the damage, particularly if you have some midliners that are within like 30 feet of you. That'll help sort of like level it out. And if for whatever reason the field starts to collapse and you end up next to your squishy wizard, it is going to help them out quite a bit. Next up is the Battle Rager, Path of the Battle Rager. This is honestly the weirdest one to me, because it is supposed to be a dwarves only barbarian subclass, and it is the one that it encourages you to wear armor, which is weird. They get dash as a bonus action, which allows them to have a lot more movement sort of in the space around the battlefield, which is great. And they have sort of built-in additional damage output. Just a little bit every turn, but that can really chip away at stuff. Stuff being creatures, obviously. Next up, you have the Beast. Path of the Beast. I really should just throw Path of in there. I only wrote the end of the thing in my notes here. As a Beast, you can transform into a monster, and it encourages you to be unarmed because you gain natural weapons in claw, tooth, or tail attacks. And when you get those, you get a bunch of effects that influence the way that those operate, and so you are encouraged to be an unarmed combatant for the Path of the Beast, which is pretty cool. Next up is the Path of the Berserker. This is sort of like your baseline barbarian. It's exactly what you would expect. It is the one that can't be frightened, that scares other people, that if you enter a frenzied rage, you get an additional attack as a bonus action every turn, so you are just damage output in this case. Path of the Storm Herald is up next. It is, in my mind, the most control/utility of all of them. You can do a little bit of extra damage each turn, but you emanate sort of this aura that allows you to affect creatures around you in different ways, which is awesome. It can be either positive for your allies or negative for your enemies. Next up is the Path of the Totem Warrior. This is, I think, the hands down most versatile barbarian class, barbarian subclass. There are 5 different spirit totems that you can get, that you can pick from at 3 different points, and you don't have to pick the same one. And it lets you customize and build out to exactly what you want to have there, which is awesome. Second to last, we have the Path of the Zealot, which is just pure power. This thing is built to increase your damage output, increase your allies' damage output, and it is the unkillable barbarian, because literally when you get to 14th level, your capstone subclass feature, it's almost impossible for you to die, and it has a crazy reputation for that specifically, because you can no longer be knocked unconscious by dropping to 0 hit points. The ability is called Rage Beyond Death. Quite literally, it is impossible to kill you by just dealing damage to you like that. There's other ways to kill them, but it's a lot more specific than just like beat them down until they can't move anymore. Finally, we have the Wild Magic Barbarian, Path of Wild Magic. This one is also very interesting to me. I like it a lot. I haven't gotten to play around with it very much, but you create wild magic effects around you. You influence the world around you. The wild magic table is very short for this one, but it also has, I'm pretty sure, no detrimental properties unless a very specific situation comes up. So that is all of the barbarian subclasses. I genuinely like pretty much all of them. The Battle Rager is the one that I don't love, but whatever. The rest of them are all pretty cool. And honestly, Battle Rager is still pretty cool. It's a different sort of flavor for it. You can lift the Dwarves only restriction pretty easily. There's no reason for it to be in there anyway. But that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in and for making me a part of your morning routine. The more of you, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, follow, whatever it is. Because the more of you that do, the longer I'll be able to do these videos. And of course, thank you so much to my patrons specifically, because you guys are the ones that are making this show possible more than anything else. Remember, like I said earlier, if we hit 200 subscribers on this channel by the time I post on Friday, I will go ahead and start posting this as a podcast as well, pushing past whatever goal I had set on Patreon. I think that might be it. So, once again, thank you guys so much for making me part of your morning routine, and until next time, keep on rolling.